Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thanks for joining me for HMGM episode 15. That's how to model a gold mill in 27,000 easy steps. And true to our title, today we are actually going to continue modeling a gold mill. This is a build episode. It's been a while since our last one, and in our last one I did tease you with the idea that we'd be doing equipment foundations up on the mill. Unfortunately, after looking at the situation, I realized I just got to get the platform support done that holds up the mill foundation above the base structure. Up until now, I've been supporting it precariously with the shipping box from a set of Klipsch speakers, and that's just not a good way to keep going forward. Also, I knew that whenever I finally bit the bullet and ripped the band-aid off and all those other metaphors and just did this, that I was going to be taking that base piece on and off and on and off several times as I got everything straightened out and positioned and worked out. So I thought, if I build anything further on the mill foundation before doing that, I'm probably just going to damage it, so let's get that platform built. Come on with me into the workshop, and let's see what we got going on in there. Okay, I've got a few key measurements I need to take off this if I'm going to try and build and support this level. What I've got in mind is kind of something rectangular that will go right here, and then where this box is currently sitting, and then maybe go back a couple sections, and then I can make it look like the actual wood framing inside a mine portal. But to do that, I need to figure out exactly how high I'm supporting this thing, and I need to level this thing in order to do that. Of course, before leveling this, it was necessary to make sure that the table was level, and so that's what I did. This stick here is part of that, because if I put it on there, that's about as close as I can get it with the resources I have available. This way, very much level. And if I do it at an angle, then you can see it's also pretty good. So let's just start with the top level here. Slowly start sliding this box out. Well, that's not perfect, but let's check the next ones before I decide on that, because these didn't get exactly 100% all on the same plane, so some are slightly this way, some are slightly this way. Let's just scratch those numbers down real quick. Okay, so I got something kind of going like this. And I know that I have a stair-step fashion that I need to deal with. So the last of these stair steps is kind of like this. So on. Dimensions I was looking at is, just look at this one here and say it was roughly 12 7/8. And this one here was just about 17 inches even. Something like that. And the top piece, cross that away. So now if I take this piece of scrap and measure it, that's 1.5 by 1.5 exactly. So my overall height is 12 7/8, but I'm going to have 1 1/2 there. Now here, 12 7/8. Okay, at this point, we're more than an hour into this project phase and we haven't actually built anything. Hopefully, you get the point. These projects require a lot of careful planning if they're going to turn out clean. So there it is. Now I just need to make sure that I've got the right pieces of lumber together and start compiling a cutting schedule. I do have a substantial quantity of these 1.5 by 3/4 I could use by gluing together, but I'm not sure if I want to do that, or for the proper look I actually want to get some more 1.5 by 1.5 squares. We'll go with these rough cut 1.5 squares from a local home improvement store. They're rough milled from lower grade material, and that conveniently matches the aesthetic needed to replicate real world mining builds. miners weren't interested in moving fast. They used whatever timber was available as long as it was strong. Three-piece rectangular structures were the basis of a square set, and we'll fabricate the 3 such units to act as supports while mimicking a portal, which is the entrance to a mine adit. Okay, here's the situation. I have these 2 boards under here, so one of my main posts up here needs to align with those. So I've taken this one here and managed to screw it up, I think. Well, no. I think I got it lined up. So what I'm going to do is try and figure out how an outer post can sit on here, and then relative to that, where the next one needs to go so that it holds up this. So one of them's going to be sitting there, and I have to decide how much offset I want. Do I want it right in the middle? I'm not sure I do, because if I offset it, that gives me more space on this side for display in the future. Now that we've figured out where the square sets need to go, it's time to add additional timbering that will hold them together. This will add to the realism of our timbered portal and make them more stable for supporting the model above. Here, we're knocking down corners to add more rough cut appearance. The main posts all came together neatly as a primary structure, and lagging boards were added to show how actual mine carpenters might assemble a real-world structure of this type. Mine timber structures were designed to prevent many tons of rock from separating along weak points and crashing down over mine portals or into sections of the adit where the native rock looks sketchy. So, the timber structures we are replicating here did have a real-world function similar to what they are doing for this model. Okay, I won't bore you with 45 minutes of varnish work, but suffice to say the weathering process is being kicked off by applying Danish oil finish to the structure. Danish oil is a combination of oil stain and resin available in many colors at most hardware and home improvement stores. The oil stain colors and conditions the wood, while the resin cures quickly and locks in the finish without adding surface gloss. For furniture applications, I normally prefer to use polyurethane. Polyurethane gives a durable finish with that visual pop that people expect from furniture and hardwood floors. But for the rough look desired here, and in other vintage woodworking applications, Danish oil finish is an ideal product. Tung oil and wax finishes also give a similar antique impression when applied correctly. As a side note, one thing we 21st century explorers may not think about when viewing or touring late 19th and early 20th century mine and mill works is what they smelled like. In Colorado today, the majority of such mines smell like sulfur that leaches from the sulfide mineral deposits into which the miners were tunneling. But in the first few years after they were built and timbered, most would have been fragrant with the odor of freshly cut lumber. For the next step in aging out the wood, I'm experimenting with these Tamiya Weathering Master kits. Tamiya's products are a popular staple in model building communities. Weathering effects are applied anywhere that water, rust, dust, grease, and other contaminants might affect the surface appearance of a structure. Properly applied, weathering effects give the impression of aging, frequent use, and deterioration. The Tamiya kits use a kind of wet powder that can be tamped or smeared onto the surface, depending on the desired effect, and either way, it will stick. We got one of these kits at a hobby store, and another from an online retailer. But if you needed a similar product on short notice and those options weren't available, guess where else you can get a similar product? No, not here. No, not here either. Ah, now you're on it. There really isn't much difference between these Tamiya kits and a high-quality eyeshadow palette. So, there's that alternative if you ever need it. Just don't go raiding someone else's beauty supplies without asking first. High-quality cosmetics are astoundingly expensive. The front support is mostly hidden, so it was built and sized solely for correct spacing and strength. Okay, I've got all of my supports constructed to look like an old wood framing on a mine entrance with some openings, so we'll be able to see some model building I can do under here as well, just for fun. Now it's time to lift the foundation of the mine off of here, get these installed permanently, and then also drill holes and things for the final install of these connections down here. So, looking forward to it. I think we're finally going to make some progress forward, because once this is all in place, I can finally start working on foundations and timbering and other things that I've been wanting to do up here. At this point, everything has been tweaked and adjusted several times to get the mill foundation to sit correctly on the post structure, and some of the measurements are no longer precise. So, to get the post stand permanently installed, we've marked off the final installation positions on the top of the base, and are drilling roughly centered holes downward through the base. Another test fit, and the lower front support is then drilled and secured in place, and protruding bolts are glued securely. We'll get to how these work in a minute. Next, the post stand is held in position from above and holes are drilled upward into the posts from the bottom side through the holes previously drilled in the base. Wood glue and structural timber screws permanently secure the post support structure.
Okay, just to clarify what was going on with the front there. All three of those screws slide over those holes. Big flat washer. And then that plus a little Loctite once it's done and ready to set for the last time should hold it down pretty nicely.
Okay, so here's why I'm using all of this extra hardware instead of just building the one piece permanently onto the other. The base stand and supporting timber structure are one of the two primary assemblies comprising the final model. The mill foundation structure and the mill built on top of it will be the second assembly. These two assemblies will be separable. Since the completed structure will be around 26 inches wide, 50 inches deep, and 36 inches high, plus or minus, it will be very helpful to separate the two assemblies before moving the model between new display locations. Critically, before being displayed anywhere, we have to get this thing out of our basement workshop. After multiple test fits and refits, which we won't bore you with today, additional modifications were made to the supporting timber structure. Hi, housekeeping? Yeah, I don't know if there's been a giant mouse in here or what, but can you send somebody? The next step we undertook was to paint the underside of the mill foundation in matte black. The paint hides all of the irregular structural details so that these won't detract from the mine portal model and other display items that will be placed on the base underneath the foundation. Since the bottom side has many smooth surfaces that would take rather long to rough up for paint, and since a lightly rough finish was an acceptable risk, we primed all surfaces with a light coat of spray adhesive. The next step was a matte black paint we had left over from another project. With spray paint, it's important to apply a light initial coat to condition the surface, and when that starts to tack up, overcoat it again with one or more heavier coats for full color. This helps with adhesion. Finally, since we also had a can of matte 2K clear coat left over from another project, we oversprayed the black paint with the clear coat for added durability. Later, the front base support got a quick coat of matte black too. Once the paintwork was wrapped up, we needed to make just a couple more additions so that the foundation assembly would bolt securely to the base assembly. A pair of hanger bolts, which use a coarse self-tapping thread on one side and a machine thread on the other, were located at our local hardware store and fit the bill nicely. To install the hanger bolt's quartz thread side into wood, just twist two nuts together on the machine threads, and then use those to engage a wrench or a socket. In this case, we also used expanding polyurethane glue on the course threads to help lock them into their final position. The next step was to locate the exact landing position of these bolts on the timber crossbeam. If the bolt landing is completely hidden in a project, grease or another soft media can be used to find the position. Just apply to the end of the bolt and then lower it into place and see where it hits. Otherwise, if you can access the landing position, just mark it the old-fashioned way. Here, we're demonstrating both at the same time. Finally, the holes were drilled out and fitted with copper pipe sections as inserts. The top ends were flared out slightly and then embedded into final position using a ball-peen hammer, ensuring they don't just pop back out when the bolts are slid in and out. These act as protective sleeves to guide the bolts in and out of position and not chew up the wood. Last of all, a pair of L brackets were added at the top end of the foundation assembly to ensure no flexing up there either.
Alright guys, it's taken a lot of work to get to this step. Let's try assembling it for the first time as it will be put together when it is assembled permanently.
We now have 7 bolts, providing 3 primary points of support for the foundation, and the entire assembly can be detached and separated in about 5 minutes.
Well, there it is. It's basically how it's going to go together in the end, except once everything's built up on top of the surface here, it'll take 2 people to lift it off instead of just 1. But double checking everything. Still level that way. Still level that way. Fairly level that way, slightly off. Fairly level there. Fairly level there. Fairly level there. Going across this way. Looking pretty good. 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 And good. So that's that. We have a viable mounting solution, and now we continue with developing the model of the mine tunnel underneath. I'll probably do a little more work on that first, just because that's got to be done before I get too complicated up here. And then I can also start doing foundations up on this top piece.
Hey everyone, I hope you found that interesting, maybe even learned a few tips and tricks for your own hobbies. In any case, it's been a little while since we've been looking into what the Bible says about mines and mining and gold and treasures and things built up on this earth and how long they really last. Here's a really amazing description from thousands of years ago. This is in the book of Job, chapter 28. If you're not familiar with the book of Job, the namesake, Job, is a man who suffers great losses, goes through a terrible time of suffering, and then 3 friends show up supposedly to try and comfort him, but they've got this idea that his suffering has been caused by something wrong that he's done, and even though they can't prove it, and they go back and forth, and there's wisdom and philosophy and science and everything you can think of discussed. And after all that, we get to chapter 28, and there's different points of view on who actually wrote chapter 28, but the one that I think makes the most sense is that chapter 28 is actually the story's narrator stepping back in and saying, okay, you've heard all this going on, where was wisdom in it? But look at the example that's used here. This is amazing. Surely there is a mine for silver and a place for gold that they refine. Iron is taken out of the earth, and copper is smelted from the ore. Man puts an end to darkness and searches out the farthest limit of the ore in gloom and deep darkness. He opens shafts in a valley away from where anyone lives. They are forgotten by travelers. They hang in the air, far away from mankind. They swing to and fro. As for the earth, out of it comes bread, and underneath it is turned up as by fire. Its stones are the place of sapphires, and it has dust of gold. That path no bird of prey knows, and the falcon's eye has not seen it. The proud beasts have not trodden it, the lion has not passed over it. Man puts his hand to the flinty rock and overturns mountains by the roots. He cuts out channels in the rocks, and his eye sees every precious thing. He dams up the streams so that they do not trickle, and the thing that is hidden he brings out to light. Ah, but where shall wisdom be found, and where is the place of understanding? Man does not know its worth, and it is not found in the land of the living. All the effort and expense that goes into building things like these, or even the effort that's going into building a model like that, people will pursue activities like these for wealth and profit, but how much do they truly value wisdom? Real, objective, truthful wisdom. That can only come from God, and that's what the narrator here is bringing out. So, hopefully you enjoyed that build episode today. Hopefully we'll have more coming soon, because I'm starting to get really excited about this now that I'm seeing it built up and looking like that. And also, this past summer when I wasn't doing build episodes, we got up into the mountains, I think about 11 or 12 weekends, and on several of those got to see some old mine and mill sites. So we'll be bringing some of that footage to you as the winter progresses. See you again next time.
Has anyone seen my phone?